Well, hello, my friends. I'm a child of God and a person of worth named Rochelle, who is powerless over drugs and alcohol and codependency. Hello, I want to welcome you again here. To anyone who may be new, we are in the fourth month here at Celebrate Recovery, which means we are going to start the fourth step. And so don't worry if you're new here. You may have already heard like there's this fourth step thing that comes up and it's a dreaded thing. Don't dread it. It's not. Because tonight we're going to talk about what you're going to get to walk through this fourth step. So it's a great time to start right now in recovery and learn about the tools that we need for our recovery and the people that can walk alongside us. So if you're just jumping in, we just want to welcome you here. However, again, this is a great night for you to start because we're teaching on sponsors. Now, before we get started, I have a funny story for you. Well, it might be funny to you. I found it very funny. Man walks into a recovery room. Everyone kept on telling him, "You need a sponsor." So he figured, okay, he'll just pick the first person who seems like they got it all together, right? So you know where the story's going, right? So he found this guy. He looked like he had wisdom. He had a great mustache. And he always had a coffee in his hand. So he thought, you know what? That's sponsor material right there. And so he walked up to the guy and he said, "Will you be my sponsor?" The guy paused, took a long sip of coffee and said, "Well, I'm actually just waiting here for my wife. I don't really attend these meetings." Yep. He almost picked a random guy in a church lobby as his sponsor. Moral of the story, don't just pick anyone. Pick someone who actually works the program, okay? That might be a little wise. Find someone you want what they have and not just how they look, okay? So this is what this message is about. So principle 4 says, openly examine and confess my faults to myself, to God, and to someone I trust. Now we got to talk about how to find that someone I trust. Because Matthew 5:8 says, happy are the pure at heart, and we want a pure heart. And so we want to find that person that we can openly confess our faults to. Now, last month, we already talked about the importance of having a personal relationship with Jesus Christ, because that's really vital. And you'll find that when you make that decision to turn your will and your life over to the care of God. But now you'll see that the road to recovery is not meant to be traveled alone. It's not just you and God. You'll find that you actually need 3 relationships. Most important is a relationship with Jesus Christ. In addition, you need the relationship of your recovery group or your church family. And last, you also need the relationship of your sponsor and accountability partners. Identifying a sponsor and or accountability partner is especially important before you begin principle 4s through 6. That's when you start getting right with God and yourself and others, and you need someone else to walk with you through that journey. I liked this analogy that the Celebrate Recovery used. It says, principle 4 is about getting rid of the truth decay and coming clean. And I thought about that, and I'm like, truth decay. At first, I just read right by it, and then I started thinking about how much of our truth is actually decayed. Like, how much of the things that we believe is true is actually rotten. There's nothing good out of the things that we believe that's true when we walk through this door. Our truth becomes distorted. Proverbs 15:14 says, a wise person is hungry for truth while the fool feeds on trash. And that's what we're going to talk about. Are you ready to feed on the truth, the real truth about your life, about who God says you are, seeing all the ugliness that you've done and being able to put that in your past and forgive yourself and see yourself in the true life of who God says you are? If so, it's time to take out that trash. And trash can get pretty heavy at times. We shouldn't handle it alone. We need a genuine mentor, coach, or in recovery terms, sponsor, and accountability partners. Some of you may be still unconvinced that you may need another person to walk alongside you on your road to recovery. So if that's you tonight, we're going to answer 5 questions that you might have about a sponsor. Because let's just face it, a lot of us, me included, when I walked in this room, I had a lot of questions on like, why do I really need someone else? Like, God knows everything. I'm talking about it in this groups. Why do I really, can't I just go through these lessons each week and answer these questions or pick up the 4 guides that are out there at the literature table? I'll just pick them up and work through them, right? That's easy. I can work through the steps myself, right? We've all thought that. We've all wanted to do it. So we're going to talk about 5 questions about a sponsor. And the first one is, well, easy. Why do I need a sponsor? or accountability partner. So you guys got some message notes if you want to take notes. There's a couple fill-ins tonight. There's also space down there to just take notes where something may stand out to you tonight. I encourage you, if God speaks something to you or if you hear something, write it down. You can remember it later, because I always forget those things later. And then I find it randomly in my Bible, and I was like, oh yeah, I was supposed to do that. Oops, did I say that out loud? I just admitted that to all of you. Yep, okay. First of all, you can't fix the problem with the same mind that created the problem. What do you know? You got yourself there. Let someone else show you how to find your way out. Let's face it, throughout recovery, we struggle, even after. So you come into recovery and our truths are still distorted, okay? Before recovery, we come in here and we admit, okay, maybe things weren't right. But even after you start this recovery thing and you stop trying to pick up your hurt, habit, or hang up, your thinking doesn't automatically get right. We struggle with seeing lies in our thinking when we move along by ourselves. This is the exact purpose we need a sponsor, someone to offer a different perspective than what's going on in that head of ours. Now, there are 3 reasons why you need a sponsor or accountability partner. And the first one is having a sponsor or an accountability partner is actually biblical. You find it in the Bible. Ecclesiastes 4:9-10 says, 2 people are better off than one, for they can help each other succeed. If one person falls, the other can reach out and help. But someone who falls alone is in real trouble. Proverbs 27:17 also says, as iron sharpens iron, one person sharpens another. The phrase one another is used in the New Testament over 50 times. We need one another. This is biblical. We cannot do this journey alone. Now, the next one, having a sponsor accountability partner is a key part of your recovery program. Like, that's what it is built on. It's a key foundation. Like, without the sponsor accountability partner, there is no working the 12 steps. A sponsor will help you guide you through the steps of recovery. Working step 4 can be brutally painful. For any of us, no matter what hurt, habit, or hang up that we're struggling with. We really need the aid of someone that's gone through this process before. Mine also helped me to stay balanced on my inventory because I really struggled to remember any of the good things I'd done in the past. I could give you a whole long list of everything I'd done wrong, but that wasn't really who I was. And so, sponsors help you stay balanced there. They also have a way of helping us see our part in resentments. I don't know about you, but I have a tendency to think that person did everything to me and I did nothing to them. And I'm mad because they messed up and they need to come apologize. It's not my fault. Yeah. Well, my sponsor would always help me out and see in my part. She would help me to see when I was walking in that wrong direction and getting stuck there. My sponsor was always on top of my progress and my steps. Now, she didn't push me. She didn't do them for me, but she was there to help keep me on track, to keep me accountable when I started missing that appointment with her. Not like I did that at all, Okay. You know that your recovery program has 4 key elements to success. If your recovery program includes all these areas, then you'll be well onto the solution of wholeness. Now, the first key is maintaining an honest view of reality as you work each step. Now, again, we've got this thinking problem. That's why we're here. And so that's where our sponsor is really going to help us keep an honest view of reality. I have yet to see this program fail for someone who could be completely honest with themselves. I have, however, seen some people give up on their recoveries because they couldn't step out of the denial and into God's truth. That happens pretty often. Having someone help to keep you honest is a real plus in successfully being able to work the steps. The second key element in making your attendance at recovery meetings a priority in your schedule. So sponsors will help you do that. It's not like, when we have this great idea that we're just going to take the summer off. It's summer. Let's just take the summer off from our recovery, right? I've never said that. Those might be those ideas that we run by our sponsor and they help hold us accountable. Don't get me wrong. It is great to take a vacation. We all need time away. We all need vacations. But, after a few weeks are up, you come back to meetings. Or if you're new in recovery, your sponsor might encourage you to find some meetings where you're at vacation. Now, ever since COVID, we got this new thing where there's like meetings every hour online for most things that we struggle with. So really, there's no real reason for us to not go to meetings, but I'll tell you what, those smart ideas come up all the time, and we'll just run with them if we ain't talking to somebody else. We come up with those own ideas, and nobody told us not to, so it's like, I didn't know I wasn't supposed to do that. That's the point of a sponsor. They'll help hold you accountable. Remember, your hurts, habits, and hangups, they don't take vacations. They're right there with you. Now, also, they'll help you have a home group. So you'll have a group that you stay accountable to each week. And so they can encourage you. If you start missing that exact group each week, they're going to remind you about that. You know, a sponsor and or accountability partners also are very good to have during this time, because accountability partners, for me, those were the people that I was meeting at that meeting. You know, they were my group of people that I said, see you there on Friday, see you there, you know, whichever meeting that we were going to, or they're the ones that picked me up. Those were also people that helped hold me accountable to going to meetings. Now, the third element in maintaining a spiritual program with is continuing to have a relationship with Jesus Christ through prayer, meditation, and study of his word. You know, we're going to focus a lot more about that when we go on to like Principle 7. We're going to talk about the importance of having our relationship with Jesus in that prayer and meditation time. But you don't have to wait till you get to there to develop that relationship with Jesus. And so your sponsors and your accountability partners will help encourage you to be going back to Jesus with praying, to be praying to him when you're struggling, even praying for you. And so it's very important to have sponsors and accountability partners if we want to have a successful spiritual program, or successful spiritual relationship with Jesus Christ. You know, they're the ones that whenever I called my sponsor, she would say, well, did you pray about it? Well, no, why would I do that? It's never usually my first instinct, right? Who else is with me? Who else has called their sponsor and they said, did you pray about it, right? And who else hadn't prayed about it before calling your sponsor? Okay, so sponsors are really good with there. And the last key element that we need for a successful program is getting involved with service. And so your sponsor and accountability partners will definitely help you make sure that you're staying connected to serving. They may even voluntold you for something, you know, voluntold. You got told to go open that door for somebody. Yeah. If your sponsor gives you that advice, it's usually something to kind of take, especially if it's something simple, because they see you're just standing there and that door needs to be held. You know, but really, seriously, the service work is so vital to our recovery because it really helps us get out of ourselves. It helps us to connect to other people. We are selfish, self-seeking human beings. That's why we got stuck in our hurt, habits, and hang-ups in the first place. And so they'll help us be accountable to getting involved in service work, because left to our own devices, unless we're codependent, we usually don't find a whole bunch of things to get ourselves into. Now, you know, service is nothing but love with work clothes on. You know, there are plenty of opportunities for you connected just in service, whether it be greeting here, whether it be greeting at another meeting, whether it be serving coffee, cooking on the dinner, hospitality, literature table. There's so many opportunities. You know, service is also about like sponsoring others and stuff like that, but there is entry-level stuff that you can start as soon as you get into recovery. Now, without exception, everyone, there is no exception here, everyone who wants to be in recovery and have a successful recovery by working the 12 steps has to have a sponsor. We just have to. And accountability partners are highly suggested. Now, the third, having a sponsor and or accountability partner is our best guard against relapse. That is the best guard we have against relapse. Because usually for me, when I'm like, you know, my thoughts all the way out the road already, there ain't nothing reeling me in, there ain't prayer, there's nothing reeling me in except picking up that phone and calling my sponsor and her reminding me of either all the things I've been through or reminding me of what steps to take or meeting me at a meeting, or, you know, they're our best guard against relapse. They'll help provide feedback to keep us on track. Sponsors and accountability partners, they can see our old dysfunctional self defeating patterns start to creep back up before we recognize them, you know, and so that's why it's really helpful to use them. They'll help us identify when they start surfacing and point them out to us quickly before we have to go into a complete mental breakdown or return to our hurts, habits, and hangups. And they can help confront you with truth and love without placing guilt or shame. Because that's the coolest thing about getting a sponsor is you find a sponsor and they've been where you're at. And so many a times we try to talk to some person that has no idea where we've been, and we try to talk to them and there's like all this guilt and shame because we feel embarrassed and all these things, right? And so we don't really tell them the truth about anything. You know, we tell them surface level what we might think may sound okay when we're speaking to them. But, your sponsor is the person that you can call and say, look, I really want to throw somebody out the window, or I really want to go and drink a bottle, or I really want to go and do something extremely, destructive to my life. And we can be honest about what that extremely destructive thing is. So they're our best guard against relapse. Ecclesiastes 7:5 tells us that it's better to be criticized by a man than to be praised by a fool. And so that good criticism when we're making those wrong choices is really good. We need those people in our lives that can help us know than to have someone pat us on the back and tell us you're doing a good job. It's okay if you just went out and got drunk right now, or if you're about to go get drunk, you deserve one. We don't need those people, okay? The trouble with most of us is that we'd rather be ruined by praise than saved by criticism. Isn't that true? Isn't that true? We'd rather have people praise us even when we're doing wrong than be saved by the criticism we might receive or the critiquing. Criticism sounds like such a hard word, that the correction that what we might get when we call a sponsor. Now, so what are the qualities of a sponsor? So we want to be thorough and honest with our recovery, right? So a sponsor should have the same exact hurt, habit, or hang-up that you have. Again, that experience thing. For instance, a mechanic isn't going to teach me how to jump out of a plane, okay? That's not the person I need to find that advice from. For me, addiction was my first habit that I needed help with. That was my worst okay? That's what I had in the beginning, and so I went to somebody that had recovery from that. And then later on, after a few years, when that codependency started really rearing its ugly face, I found a sponsor that had recovery in codependency. I had to find someone that actually had recovery in the area that I was looking at. And since my sponsor shared some of the common ground as I did, she could relate to what I was experiencing and she could share her experience with me, and that's important. We want a sponsor who can confront our denial and our unwillingness to be honest with ourselves, because they themselves have done the same thing in those same areas. Pick one that's on the road to recovery that you want. My sponsor had something I wanted. She had peace, joy, and happiness. That's what I looked for, and that's why I asked her to sponsor me. A sponsor's walk should match his or her talk. That's another good quality. You want their walk to match their talk, not just what they're saying in meetings, what you see living out. Is their life an example of one you'd like what did I write there? Is their life the example of one you would like to have? Okay. Are they growing spiritually? Those are things to look for. One of the objectives of recovery is to grow in our relationship with Jesus Christ, right? We're here because we know we need God to save us. We know we need a relationship with him. So look for people that have a relationship with Jesus or that are seeking to grow in their relationship with Jesus. And you can tell, is there evidence of this in their life? Are they expressing a desire to help others? Now, a sponsor's beliefs don't have to be the exact same as ours. Trust me, I didn't believe a lot of the things that she said in the beginning. They were my distorted beliefs too, but just saying, they don't have to be exact as ours, especially when we're new, okay? Because again, sometimes when we're new, our beliefs are distorted. But they do need to have evidence of the principles working in their life. They do need to have evidence of the program working in their life. Now, here's where I'm going to say, when I was writing this, I'm not going to sit here and tell you all the exact qualities that your sponsor might have. Why? Because if you're like me, you're taking a checklist because you're trying to figure out, the right sponsor isn't out there. So you're going to write down verbatim every word that I say, and you're going to walk around and you're going to check mark everybody's life to see if you can find every quality, right? Okay, so some of you guys, it may be a sense of humor. That may be important to you. So, there's different things, right? So I can't tell you all of the qualities that your sponsor should have, but I can tell you these are the basic qualities that you should see in your sponsor's life. Are they working a program? Are they seeking a relationship with Jesus? Are they helping others? These are the types of things that you want to look for. And if I give you a list of these characteristics, you'd probably do the same thing that I would have done. Go on a mission searching for that exact person, and then you'd say, well, I can't find it. And so then you'd go a really long time without having a sponsor because you couldn't find the perfect person. And we don't want you to do that. There's no perfect people out there. Matter of fact, I encourage you, do not put your sponsor on a pedestal. Do not put your sponsor on a pedestal. Your sponsor is another human being. They will make mistakes too. but they're growing in their relationship with Jesus, and they learn from their mistakes just like you do. A good sponsor will be able to share a different point of view and start to open your mind to things. This means their opinion is often different than yours, and we just need to be open and willing to hear it. Proverbs 25 says, the purposes of a person's heart are deep waters, but one who has insight draws them out. We want someone who can help us sort out our heart conditions. We want someone that can help draw out what's really going on in there. Now, here we have, what is the role of a sponsor? Okay, so what is the role of a sponsor? Many of you have asked this question, like, what is my sponsor supposed to do? Like, why do I need one? Okay, for one, they can be there to discuss issues in detail that are too personal or would take too much time in a meeting. Everything's not meant to be shared in a meeting. We don't give our whole life story there. But we do find a sponsor, someone that we can tell them everything that's going on in life, and they can help sort through that stuff. Not all details in our life and struggles are meant to be shared in an open share group. And a sponsor will walk you through things that are more deeply going on with the issues that you have. And so you want to be able to tell them about all that stuff. 2, they are available in times of crisis or potential relapse. A sponsor is that person you're going to call when you've got that thinking coming back. I've always told the newcomers that I've sponsored, call me before you take the first drink, please. Call me before you take the first drink. Now, you can still take it after we talk. That's your choice. I cannot control what you do. I can suggest that you don't. But if you do decide to, please call me first. You've got the opportunity. We can talk about that. If you really don't want to pick up, all you got to do is not want to pick up whatever it is, your hurt, habit, or hang up. You just want to have a little bit more desire to not do that than you want to just run. Okay, and when you have that, you pick up that phone right away and you make that phone call before you talk yourself out of it and you have less desire, because that could happen too. 2 people can resist the attack that one person would defeat one person alone. That's found in Ecclesiastes 4:12. Now, the third role of a sponsor is they serve as a sounding board by providing an objective point of view. This is especially true in steps 9. When you're dealing with the sensitive area of making amends and offering forgiveness, you need a good sounding board. I tried to go out and make amends before I talked to my sponsor about it. That was not a great idea because, again, the things that I thought in my brain made perfect sense to me, but when I talked to him out loud with another person, with my sponsor, she was able to help me see something from a different perspective. And what I actually did was hurtful to that person, not helpful. And so they can be a great person to provide an objective point of view. The 4th role they have is they are there to encourage you to work the steps and the principles at your own speed. Now, also with that is also to remind you if your own speed is just dragging for some sort of reason, okay? So they'll give you those reminders, but again, they can't force you to do anything, but they can remind you, hey, you want to get well? So they're there to encourage you to work those. It's not their jobs to work the steps for you, but they can coach you in your progress. They can confront you when you're stuck, and they can slow you down when you think when you're going too fast. We tend to want to do that too. That checklist. I have any checklist people in here? I was a checklist person. Thought I could just hurry up and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I get that done in no time, right? Can we just sit down and have it over with? Well, a sponsor will help us through that. But most importantly, they attempt to model that lifestyle that results from working the 8 principles in these 12 steps. They model that life for you. They encourage you that way. It's difficult to inspire others to accomplish what you haven't been willing to try yourself. A good sponsor lives out the principle, and they model it for you. So they give you the examples of the struggles they went through, and they show you how they walked through it. And so they model what working that program looks like in your life. Now, some people may be asking, how do I find a sponsor or accountability partner? Well, the responsibility of finding a sponsor or accountability partner, it is all yours. But let me give you a few final guidelines to help you in your search. Go to meetings. Go to meetings. Go to meetings. Attend them, lots of them. We say around here, many meetings equals many chances. Okay, well, that's where you're going to meet a sponsor. Attend several meetings at different locations. This will increase your chances of finding a sponsor that's right for you. And I'm going to say it, not just Celebrate Recovery meetings, although there are many other ones in the area that you can attend. Celebrate Recovery meetings are great. You can find sponsors there. But if you struggle with drugs and alcohol, there's also other places you can find a sponsor at, AA, CA, NA. If you struggle with codependency or anger, there are Al-Anon meetings. There are 12-step food groups. There are gambling anonymous groups. There are other groups out there. Find a sponsor. If you want recovery, there are many meetings that you can find a sponsor at. Those are great places. These are great places to go to see who goes to the meeting, to listen their shares in the meeting, to uncover, how they're working the program, hear their experience. There's a chance to see their demeanor, watch their walk. These are the places, go to meetings. These are the places you get phone numbers with people and you get to know them. That's how you get to find a sponsor, is you get to know people. Come to the dinner early. Hang out on the fourth Friday for ice cream. Like, these are places that you can have conversations and you can get a sponsor, okay? Invest some time in fellowship. Don't just show up when the meeting starts and dip out the door when it ends. You ain't gonna find a sponsor that way, okay? Most important, ask God. Ask God for his guidance. Ask him to lead you to a sponsor and or accountability partners of his choosing. He knows you and everyone in this room, and he has someone in mind already for you. All you need to do is ask. Now, the last question you might have is, what is the difference between a sponsor and accountability partner? Sponsor is someone who's completed the 12 steps. He or she meets the requirements that we've talked about the role of a sponsor, and the main goal of this relationship is to guide you through the program. Now, accountability partners are someone that you ask to hold you accountable for certain areas of your recovery, such as your meeting, journaling, so forth. Maybe there's a certain thing that you're struggling with, and you just ask them to hold you accountable. This person, they can be at the same level of recovery you are. Unlike a sponsor, who has completed all the 12 steps. The main goal of this relationship is to have someone to encourage you. You can even form an accountability team of 3 or 4. The accountability partner group, they act as a team, whereas a sponsor's role is that as a coach. So your sponsor's your coach, your accountability partners are your team. On the back of that paper, I jotted down like some of the differences between accountability partners and sponsors. A lot of people ask that a lot, so we just put it on there. Now, you can start forming these accountability teams in your small group tonight. Don't wait. Now, the band's going to come back up here, and I read another story, and it was the best story I found to explain a sponsor. So, have you ever heard the story, of a person that's walking down the street and they fall into a hole, right? Okay, some of you guys have heard it. Okay, for those of you who haven't, I got a good example of what a sponsor, how a sponsor will be different than other people, right? Okay, so there's a person walking down the road and they fall into a hole. And he's down there and someone sees that he's stuck down in this hole, and the person yells down to him, "Do you need help?" And he replies, "Yes." So he says, "I'll go get a rope and you can pull yourself out of there." So he goes to get the rope. And then as he was waiting for him to return, another man sees him stuck down in the hole and yells to him, "Do you need help?" And he replies, "Yes." So the man says, "I'll get a ladder and then you can climb yourself out of there." So as the man waits for him to return, another man sees him stuck down in the hole, and this man yells, "Do you need help?" And he says, "Yes," and explains that there's a man and he went to go get a rope so I could pull myself out of here. And then there was a guy and he went to get a ladder so I could climb myself out of here. And all of a sudden, the last man, he jumps down in the hole with this guy. And he says, "Oh, I fell in this hole a few days back. I'll show you how we can get out of this together." That's what a sponsor does. They get down in the hole with you when you're stuck, and they show you how to get out together. We all need sponsors, someone to walk us through this program. Now, each night we open the altar here at Grace, because the main person we need to connect with is our relationship with Jesus. We need sponsors, we need accountability partners, but we need a relationship with Jesus. And our sponsors and accountability partners, they're going to help us to grow and to clear out all that stuff that's separating us from God. But the main way that we develop a relationship with Jesus is meeting him right where we're at, confessing what's on our heart, talking to him about where we're struggling with. Seek and you shall find. Knock and the door shall be opened. you want this relationship with Jesus, chase after it. So we're going to sing another song, and this altar is going to be open, and we just invite you, whatever's laying in your heart, like this is the place that you bring it. The altar is the place that you talk with God. If you're struggling, you don't want to really ask somebody to be your sponsor, maybe just come up here and ask him for some courage. Maybe it's time to ask him to point out who that person is. But this altar is your space. It's your time to spend with God as we sing another song. And if you'd like someone to pray with you, please raise your hand, and we'd be happy to come up and pray with you.